Will the Housing and Land Use Committee meeting of March 20th, 2025 come to order? It is now 2:51 p.m. I am Tasha Kama, Chair of the Housing and Land Use Committee. This online meeting is being conducted in accordance with the Sunshine Law. Members, when your name is called, and you're all with me in the chambers, thank you. Thank you. I feel honored you're all here. So, I want to say aloha winola to Committee Vice Chair Nohelani U'uhajins.
Aloha Chair, aloha everyone.
Aloha winola Council Chair Alice Lee.
And aloha to you too.
Thank you. And aloha winola to Vice Chair Yukile Sugimura.
Aloha Winala, and looking forward to a productive meeting. Thanks for doing this.
Well, it's all up to you all. That's how productive we're going to be. And we're going to go on to say aloha winola to Councilmember Tamara Paulton.
Aloha winola, kakou.
We want to continue to say aloha winola to Councilmember Gabe Johnson.
Aloha Chair, council members, committee members. There's no testifiers at the Lanai District Office, and I'm here and ready to work. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say aloha winola and mahalo nui loa to Councilmember Keani Rollins Fernandez for giving up her time to the HLU committee so we could continue our discussion on deed restrictions. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Chair and members. Aloha Awinala. There are currently no testifiers at the Molokai District Office. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you. Aloha winola, Councilmember Tom Cook.
Aloha Winila, and there's currently no testifiers in Ki'i, and I'm looking forward to your meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you. And aloha winola to Councilmember Shane Sinensi.
Aloha Winala, Chair, and there are no testifiers in Hana, Chair.
Okay. And so we have with us this afternoon, Mimi Desjardins with the Deputy Corporation Counsel. Aloha winola. And we have with us today the Director of the Department of Housing, Richard Mitchell. Aloha winola.
Aloha, Chair and members.
And we have our committee staff with us this afternoon, our senior. Since we have no formal presentation on this bill, we'll take public testimony and then enter discussion regarding this proposed bill. So members, for the past several committee meetings, we have been discussing with our invited resources the advantages and disadvantages of changing the length and nature of our current deed restrictions that are placed on workforce and affordable housing units created under Maui County Code Chapter 2.96 and 2.97. Following these discussions, it appeared to me that we needed a broader discussion of changes to our attainable housing regulations. To that end, I asked committee staff to prepare an omnibus bill that would serve as a framework for that broader discussion. The resulting legislation, Bill 40, 2025, is before us at this meeting. I only consider this legislation as a vehicle for our discussions. I don't expect this bill to be passed out of this committee with without many revisions. Given that, I'm going to open up this meeting now for public testimony. For Microsoft Teams participants logged in via web or the Teams app, please indicate that you would like to testify by clicking the raise your hand icon at the top right of your window. Staff will add your name to the testifier list. If you are joined by telephone, *5 will raise your virtual hand and staff will put your name on the testifiers list. Please keep your audio and video muted until you're called to testify. Written testimony is encouraged and can be submitted via the e-comment link at mauicounty.us agendas. Oral testimony is limited to 3 minutes per item. When you reach the 2-minute mark, you will hear an audible notice. If you are still testifying when the notice sounds, please complete your testimony within the remaining minute. When testifying, we ask that you state your full name for the record, and anonymous testimony is also accepted. Decorum will be maintained throughout this meeting, and violation of decorum may result in being removed from the chamber or the online meeting. You can view the meeting on Akaku Channel 53, Facebook Live, or mauicounty.us agendas. Thank you so much for your cooperation. So at this time, we're going to call on testifiers wishing to testify on Bill 40. Staff?
Chair, the first and currently only person signed up to testify is Scarlett Martin.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I would like to thank Tamara Paithlin for this bill. You have done an amazing job advocating for your constituents. Even the people who disagree with you admire you for your tenacity and work ethics. I know nothing about the West Side, so I can only advocate for the South Side. And this problem is very prominent. Mayor Bisson came to our Kihei community meeting, and I quote, he said, Kihei suffers from bad decisions of previous administrations. I'm not sure who he was referring to, but I am a lifelong optimist, and I do believe when we know better, we do better. So I'm here to testify about Kihei. I have lived there for almost 30 years, and Kihei is dying. 25 years ago, we had 5 preschools and 2-year waiting list. Kamali'i and Kihei Elementary were maxed. Right now, go look, they're half empty. The new Kihei High School will never reach the capacity. Kihei is dying, and it's turning into Howley Mainland Retirement Center. I know the joke is not lost on me. I'm the Howley with an accent. But my children are not. They were born and raised here. They are the true Kama'aina, and they cannot come home after college. None of their friends can. And it's not because of job opportunities or because of the gas and grocery prices. It's because of the rent. So all these retirees that came 5, 7, even 10 years ago bought the houses in Pi'ilani villages behind Safeway. They were originally built for workforce housing. At some point, we all gonna have to have the come to Jesus moment and make workforce housing in perpetuity. It has been a proven concept on many islands, ski resorts, and tourist destinations. I do not understand why we cannot apply it on Maui. On south side of this island, we have 5 major hotels. I don't know if you ever talked to the general managers, but I did. They all have the same problems. Housekeeping is aging out. The new generation doesn't want to do it, and they are considering J1 visa. They will bring them from Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia. They have nowhere to put them. They even considered building a hotel housing, but because of the cost of land and the process, it's just not feasible for them. So pretty soon, I don't know if it's this council or this mayor or the next one, we're gonna get used to eminent domain and workforce housing in perpetuity. Hospitality on this island is more than 80% workforce. You have to be able to have generations of coming young people who will work in these hotels.
Thank you for your testimony. We're going to ask the members if they might have questions for you. Members, any questions for our testifier? You have one? Okay, Member Paulton?
I didn't have a
Oh,
question.
okay.
I just wanted to clarify. Member Hodgins, myself, and Member Kama all put forward bills, so I didn't
Well,
want
thank you. I didn't want to just give credit to you.
Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. Yeah. No questions? Oh, Member Sugimura has a question for
I don't
you.
really have a question. Thank you very much for testifying. I saw her in the back,
Yeah.
and she said, I wasn't really going to testify. And look, good job.
Yes,
Thank you. I'm here for my children. They
Thank
can
you.
come home.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Staff, any other testifiers?
Chair, that is all the individuals signed up to testify. If anyone in the audience, oh, we have a testifier approaching.
Okay.
Aloha, Avakea, JC Law. Hawaiian word for, second Hawaiian word for today. Hili na'i, to believe, trust, to lean on, rely on, trust, confidence.
Thank you. Seeing no questions. Staff?
Chair, that is everyone signed up to testify. If anyone in the audience or on Teams would like to testify, please come up to the microphone and begin your testimony, or use the raise your hand function on Teams and staff will unmute you. I'll provide a brief countdown. Wait. 3, 2, 1. Chair, seeing no one indicating they wish to testify.
Thank you. Members, seeing there are no more individuals wishing to testify, without objection, I will now close oral testimony. But as a reminder, written testimony will continue to be accepted into the record. Thank you. So we're now going to continue to proceed discussing Bill 40. But members, I wanted to ask you, do you want to continue the discussion that we had these past few days? Or do you just want to go into the bill and start from there? What is your pleasure? We can continue discussing, or we can just get right to the bill, and then whatever amendments might be necessary, we could work on them. Up to you all. Member Paulton.
Thank you. My pleasure would be to go right into the bill.
That's my pleasure too, but what is the will of the body? Member Johnson? Oh, Mike, okay.
Thumbs up for the going into the bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Sinensi. That's 3, 4. Okay. Okay. We're good. Okay, so let's go into the bill. Okay. So I hope that you all have your bill. I'm hoping that you all read it. I'm thinking that you probably did, and you're ready with your amendments, which is really great. Okay, so why don't we start with, hold on. Okay, so I think right now, members, the chair will entertain a motion to recommend passage on first reading of Bill 40, 2025, entitled "A Bill for an Ordinance Amending Chapter 2.96, 2.97, and 3.44 Maui County Code on Residential Workforce Housing Units, incorporating any non-substantive revisions."
So moved.
It's been moved by Member Paulton, seconded by Member Johnson. Okay, so let's, any discussion? Member Paulton, yes.
Thank you. I really like what was done here, personally. I think it captured the essence of so many things. If I did make an amendment, the only one I see would be if ownership on page 4, 2.96.060 B4, I would make it the same as what B1 is. That would be the only thing that I would change. 2.96.060 B4, I would make it the same as what B1 is instead.
So are you going to make that an amendment or?
Sure. Would you entertain that? I move to amend 2.96.060 B4 to say ownership units that did not receive a county affordable housing fund subsidy are subject to the deed restrictions contained in this section for the following periods: A, below moderate income, 12 years, B, moderate income, 10 years, and C, above moderate income, 8 years.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded with Member Paulton's amendments, and basically, as she stated earlier, that is only taking what's in item B and moving it over to number 4, correct? Word for word, verbatim. And it was seconded by...
Not verbatim, but to apply to the situation.
Right. And was seconded by Member Paul, County Rollins?
Correct. Just pointing out that C is 10 years. I think you said 8.
12, 10, and...
So if it's going to be the same, then it would be 10? Is that... Or am I reading something wrong?
Yeah.
C says 8 years on mine.
Yeah. I'm sorry. That was B2. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I'm on the same page now.
Okay, members, are we all on the same page now with Member Paulton's amendment?
Oh, did you want me to discuss it?
If you'd like to.
Okay. Just that, it has been said that 5, 8, and 10 years are a little short, and this is what 2.96 becomes. I think that if it's a single family home, that is intended to be a kind of more of a forever home. But I don't think that the deed restriction should be less than a multifamily, because we've heard so much about multifamilies and apartments and things like that. So I agree that if they didn't get any county subsidy for the Affordable Housing Fund, it shouldn't be quite as long. But it shouldn't be shorter than a multifamily.
Any other discussion? Okay, yes, Member Hodgins.
Thank you, Chair. I understand Member Paulton's point, but I actually preferred her first language with multifamily and keeping it 10 years across the board. And then I also, so I won't be supporting this amendment. I also support shorter deed restrictions than what's currently proposed. And I would not like to have number 4 in there, because this council has made it difficult for people to not have county subsidies. So it's nearly unrealistic to assume that that's not the case. Right now we have one project coming in without county subsidies. It's a quite large project. and it's becoming extremely difficult. So we can assume that most likely that won't happen. And I just find it quite unnecessary at this point, although I would love to get to the point where we don't need to constantly subsidize our affordable housing projects.
Any other discussion? Member Sugimura?
So, oh, sorry, Member Hodgins, for clarification. So you're saying delete 4? Oh, sorry.
Right now, we're on
saying
Member
to-
Paulton's amendment, and for me not to get confused, because I do have a bunch of amendments as well, I'm just going to say, in my opinion, everybody do what they want to do. I'm going to vote no, and then I have some other amendments for this section.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Member Rollins Fernandez?
Mahalo, Chair. I will be voting in support of this motion. Really, my position is I don't think any more housing should be built unless it's affordable. That's 100%. Like, any housing that's built should be affordable. I think there's enough luxury houses here to generate the subsidy, which is the reason that past administrations and councils said that they were supporting the project in order to subsidize affordable housing. Supporting the development of all these luxury mansions along the coastline that's like $15-20 million. Like, part of supporting those projects was to subsidize affordable housing. So, like, we won't stop subsidizing affordable housing because that was the claimed or asserted purpose of supporting those projects. Yeah, so my position is I wouldn't support any more housing, really, unless it's affordable for our residents. I don't know why we would support anything different, really. So I will be supporting the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Member Paulton?
I guess just that I have a couple of developers that I've been speaking with on the west side that were talking about not getting affordable housing. But, you know, I mean, one has entitled land already for R3 and one is partially, but both of them say they don't want to get any county money because they don't want additional requests or things. I don't know if it'll pan out because like Member Hodgins said, you know, our whole development and permits and all like that. The one that called me in Ka'anapali, it's not Ka'anapali 20, it's a different one. It's still in the really early stages, but they don't want to do any affordable housing subsidies. So I guess, you know, there's folks out there, but if what they say and what actually happens could be a different story. But I've had people come to me saying that, but, you know, you can say whatever you want. Just throwing that out there for consideration.
Any other discussion? Member
I'll let him
Member
go first, 'cause I
Sinensi
already-
and then Member Hodgins.
Yeah, just to clarify, Chair, in number 4, it does say ownership units that did not receive county fund subsidy would have their deed restriction period halved. Can you explain?
Oh, the amendment that I'm sorry.
I think Member Hodgins,
You turned your mic
you
off.
turn your mic off.
Oh.
And we all want to hear your answer. to
Sorry,
Member
because I was only telling him, that is absolutely what it says, but correct me if I'm wrong, Member Paulton, but she wanted number 4 to look more like number 1, A, B, and C. So that was her change.
Because what it says in there, if it halved it, it would go back to what 2.96 currently is. The way that it's written right now is not how it currently is. So, and we're talking about like single family homes, which to me, I do believe multifamily is a starter because, you know, you could outgrow it, have more kids. At the point where you get a single family, it's different. But I mean, with what we're doing with the CPRing of 103, then it could be different. But that's not, I don't think that's going to be like subject to workforce housing because it's 10, after the 10th one, then 10th dwelling unit, then 2.96 residential workforce housing kicks in. So those could be starter single-family homes, but it wouldn't apply to this circumstance. We're talking more like projects, like not the projects, but housing projects.
Okay,
Member
thank
Wu-
you.
Member Wu Hodgins and then Member Seymour.
Thank you. I just wanted to put an exclamation point on what Member Paulton said. She is correct in that some home providers don't need to seek county funding. That's typically when they have already entitled land, which is very few and far between. And that's not what we really have most available. I've done projects where we didn't need to come to this council for funding because it was death by 1,000 paper cuts. However, the land that is currently entitled is few and far between. So as those are being developed in the future, we won't have much, and they'll have to probably come to us because our entitlement process is long and expensive. And I'm not too sure if the mansions, and I understand Member Rollins' point. Like, I wish too we didn't have to build anything else, except this council doesn't oversee mansions building next to the ocean. They don't need our help. They don't ask for county funding. They can do that without our approval, and they have done it without our approval, and I understand her frustration. I'm from Playa. That's what I look out outside my front door. That's what's next to my grandma's house that's making her property taxes go skyrocketing. I completely understand her point, but that's not really apples to apples in this conversation when we're talking about affordable housing. And I do wish that we only really had that conversation with affordable housing, and we are fortunate in this council that that is what we focus on. And for me, I just don't want to disincentivize our affordable housing providers by providing something for us that the county government doesn't provide for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Member Sugimura?
Thank you. So I'm going to speak against the motion, or I'm going to vote against the motion. And the item number 4, ownership units that did not receive a county affordable housing fund subsidy. I mean, these are people who are building on their own and they're not coming to us. So I do not want to discourage that from happening. Everybody doesn't have to get county subsidy, or if they don't, we shouldn't have to, force them to do something that they may not have penciled out their project with. So I'm going to be voting against that.
Thank you.
This motion.
Member Paulton?
I just was trying to understand what you're saying, because if they don't get county subsidy, we're putting less on them.
But you're trying to put some, oh, sorry. May I?
Just trying to understand her.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to respond to Member
So we're
Paulton?
trying to put a deed restriction on that, right? Where right now they wouldn't come for a deed restriction if they are going to do a project on their own without having any subsidy from us. Am I misunderstanding this?
Everybody that builds more than 10 units is subject to 2.96 residential workforce housing requirements. So 2.96 does have deed restrictions on them.
But if they're not doing if they're not coming to the County of Maui for any kind of affordable housing funding, right?
They're still subject to 2.96. Even if they're not asking for affordable housing, you still have to abide by the, if you're building more than 10 units, you have to abide by 2.96, the county's residential workforce housing requirements, which is deed restrictions, is a part of that.
Okay. I'll think about it.
Mahalo, Chair. So number 4 says ownership units that did not receive a county affordable housing fund subsidy will have their deed restricted period halved, rounding up to the nearest whole year. Does that answer your question? Because even if they don't receive county subsidy, they would still have a deed restriction? Because you're saying that they would not. And Member Sugimar, does that clarify? Okay. Member Sugimar is nodding her head. Okay. And then I wanted to, Member Hajins is correct. The single units along the coastlines are not the apples, they're oranges. Here's the apples, Wailea 670, McKenna, Mauka. Those are luxury developments that come before us for approval. Mahalo, Chair.
Member Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I'll support this amendment, and I know some of this body was not here when Hokuau came through this body, and that was the Lanai Affordable Housing by Larry Ellison, who didn't take any money. But on the flip side first off, we don't have billionaires all over the place. We do need some developers that need county funds. By not taking county affordable housing, they have a whole lot more saying what they can do. When you do take the county affordable housing fund, then that public-private partnership kicks in. Then we can have a say. My community wanted some of those units for sale, but that didn't happen. But if we did kick in some affordable housing some affordable housing money, then we would have a bit more say. We would be a player at the table. Instead, we're on the menu. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that by having that affordable housing kicks in that public-private partnership, we're invested, and we're invested in our community. So I support this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
Could staff just clarify? I believe this was the intent of the move on, but in B4, currently it says ownership units, and I believe the intention was for the motion to relate to single-family ownership units. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Which is 2.
Is that it, Carla? Okay. Yes.
Mahalo, Chair. Question for Ms. Nakata. Should we include that as part of the amendment or a future amendment so that it's clear?
Staff will note that as part of the motion if it should pass. Thank you.
Okay, and if it doesn't pass, because it doesn't sound like we have the vote so much, but maybe I'm wrong, because I'm still going to vote yes. But would that be considered non-substantive or should someone make that motion later if it doesn't pass?
Are we talking about a friendly amendment or
just to add single family?
So if the motion doesn't pass, so Ms. Nakata is including that in this motion, or are you saying in the main motion?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we'll include it as part of the motion as a friendly amendment. Thank you.
Friendly amendment.
We're on a motion to amend the main motion. So friendly amendment to the motion to amend, and then we'll cross the bridge later on if this motion fails?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask staff to please repeat the motion, so we all know what we're voting for.
Repeat it?
You want to repeat the motion? You got it written down?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So for 2.96.060B4, I'm moving to amend what it says to say single-family ownership units that did not receive a county affordable housing fund subsidy are subject to the deed restrictions contained in this section for the following periods: A, below moderate income 12 years, B, moderate income 10 years, C, above moderate income 8 years.
Okay. Member Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. Mahalo to the staff and under your leadership drafting this bill. Is there a reason that the subsidy is exclusive to County Affordable Housing Fund and not other government subsidies? Or?
Well, try to remember, we all wrote this collectively, yeah?
Talk louder.
So member Hajins is
Speaking to the mic, Member Hodgins.
Oh, no, she was just letting me know that 201H is 10 years. But, and I don't know what other government subsidies for housing there are now, but also looking, as you know, I like to look beyond the right now as well. And so, you know, there could be some other kind of government, not just county housing assistance, because housing is such a problem. So in being forward-looking, instead of it being exclusive to county affordable housing fund subsidy, that it be, you know, government housing funds, something like that.
So do you want to delete the word county and insert government?
Yes, and then not just affordable housing fund subsidy. Yeah.
So are you amending the amendment?
I didn't make a motion.
Okay.
I was asking a question since we're on this, and then either it can be friendly now or it can be a future motion. Mahalo, Chair.
Okay, back to them. Oh, what, Mimi? Yes.
So just one quick comment on government subsidy versus just leaving it as receive a county housing fund. That could mean first-time home buyers, et cetera, but if you say government, it could be federal or state, and I don't know if that's your intention, great, but that's how our department would have concerns about how to interpret that. And then another quick notation is if it says single ownership units, what about the multifamily or two-family units? Are they, if they are in the same position and receive government funds or do not receive any county funding, do they not also get their deed restrictions reduced, or is it just single family? And only for clarity, so we can interpret this later. Thank you.
Do you want my answer? I was thinking we cross that bridge after we do this one on the multifamily, because I mean, it's if this passes, then, but if it doesn't pass, then it is what it is. But I did have a clarification question for Member Rollins Fernandez. Like in the 2.97, it doesn't receive affordable housing funds outright unless we give it to them. But I think they get a lot of their various fees waived and things like that. I haven't necessarily seen recently any multifamily that hasn't gotten any kind of subsidy whatsoever, but is that what you meant? Like if they get their fees waived and things like that?
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I consider all those subsidies. And that's part of why I was asking why it was exclusive to the county affordable housing fund. But it was just a question right now,
okay.
And we don't have to
deliberate.
We can dispose of the motion on the floor now, and then that's food for thought for a future motion. Mahalo, Chair.
Okay, is there any discussion other than that? We're going to call for the vote. So do you all want the motion repeated, or do you think you already know what it is? We know what it is. Oh, see, chickadees are brightly this late. Okay.
Here comes Remy.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. And I first appreciate the collaborative work and also appreciate the well-drafted bill. It looks like Ellen drafted it, so he has did a cracking job given our several meetings. On this particular section, could I recommend we consider cleaning up the language that refers to the fund? First Deputy referred to the problem with government, and I was kind of whispering another issue I see there, which is it might need to be just more inclusive to say county fund contribution or other contributions, or county fund monies or other contributions, because projects can be supported from other sources other than the Department of Housing's funds. So if you limit it that way, you're still missing the potential for contributions from some other source within the county. So I just want to make sure that if you intend to say any county monies, you say it clearly, as opposed to narrowly around a fund managed by the Department of Housing. Thank you.
Ms. Paulton.
Can you give an example of another, like, are you talking about like first time home buyers fund, or like what would be an example of the scenario that you're describing?
So the Department of Housing doesn't, for example, manage CDBG DR monies. Those monies through the Recovery Office and through the Mayor's Office could be in part a contribution to a project. And is your focus on the Affordable Housing Fund money, or is your focus on government contributions? Which is it? I'm just trying to make sure if you mean it to be the broader one, that you say the broader one.
I guess for me, in going to the action plan and hearing everyone's feedback and stuff like that, I hope that if somebody rebuilds their house or owns a house through CDBG-DR monies, that it's a much longer deed restriction than what we're talking about here, because what happened after Hurricane Katrina was big time gentrification. We don't want to give people money to build back their house and flip it with the inelasticity of housing in Lahaina and the desirability of housing in Lahaina. We want to utilize those CDBG-DR funds to bring back our generational populations, our people that make up our community, and I would hope it's much longer than 20-year deed restriction. If the CDBG-DR limited funding, I know it's 1.6 billion, but you know there's a limited amount for housing.
900 million.
I want it to go not only to building houses, but really building our community. So I would hope it's much longer than what we're discussing here.
Oh, so interesting.
We're going to go to Member Rollins Fernandez and then Member Sugimura.
Mahalo, Chair. I had suggested earlier we just move forward on this motion and then clean up the language in the next motion.
Well, something sparked something, and then something went someplace.
Yeah.
Okay. Member Sugimura.
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to do and say, Member Rollins Fernandez, but what you just said and what you just contributed about the DR funds, there's $900 million part of that CDBG DR funds, right? And so what Director Mitchell is saying is so correct. You know, we cannot only look at the Affordable Housing Fund or whatever, because those are CDBG HUD monies. So to speak of it in a broader perspective, and the lawyers can tell us what it should be, if we're looking at it too narrowly, what is the best way of doing it so that it's applicable?
Member Sugimura, you sold me on it. Let's do it.
Government subsidy.
No.
Agree with the language that Remy had suggested. So, is this, remember
I'm not too sure if this chapter would be triggered for CDBG-DR monies unless we're building in excess of 11 under one permit development. If we do an individual home person build, it's not triggering 2.96. So when we do those permits for whenever we tackle CDBG-DR funds, at that time, it might be more appropriate to discuss the deed restrictions, because that's not going to trigger 2.96. That's individual homes that don't need to go through a subdivision. They're not going to be permitted together. They perhaps might, unless they cooey up. But this is going to trigger with 10 or more homes, which is we're not building Lahaina back under 2.96 in its entirety, in my opinion. But
there's those 11 housing projects. Would that be like Weinberg Court Apartments, Front Street Apartments, Lahaina Surf, David Malo?
Those for sure, but like the individual ones, like when we're planning on building back for the low income and for HUD monies, yeah, those won't be triggered.
Individual.
Yeah, those won't be triggered. I don't think. But those for sure, when they come in and ask for monies or CDBG-DR monies.
Those would be triggered because they're like projects. They also did say like possibly new projects to get people who are renters to be able to become homeowners. So
yeah,
I mean, I'm not sure because the KS lands also could possibly be a DR fund project, which would be
Yeah,
2.96.
and then this would trigger, but like for the individual,
Yeah.
like peoples that, want to build back on their land, it won't trigger.
So we're going to go to maybe Desjardins, and then we're going to go back to Chair Lee, and then Member Seymour.
Thank you, Chair. Just a real quick thought on CDBG DR funding. So it is federal funding and will continue to have to follow whatever the federal guidelines are. So the federal guidelines could say, for example, you have to put in a 30-year deed restriction, or it may say you can't put in any deed restrictions. I can try to find out an answer to that question for you folks. I don't know off the top of my head, but there's hundreds of pages of regulations that involve that money. So we'd have to look at that real carefully. Even if it's triggered under 296 and you use that funding, we'd be covered under the federal guidelines. Thank you.
Okay, Chair Lee, Member Seymour, and then.
Yeah, I don't know. I get the feeling we are beating a dead horse here. I think some people support this motion, but I'd like to take the vote to find out if other people don't. I don't support it, but I had heard Member Hajan say she has a whole bunch of amendments, and I'm thinking, well, why don't we hear them? So we can consider everything instead of one thing at a time. Just consider all, what's the best solution here under the circumstances.
Well, I thought taking one amendment at a time was the process, right? And then we would take the second amendment, right? And between the two, we'd go ahead. So I'm not sure if we can take them all at one time and figure it out, but we should dispose of this one.
Well, yeah, I think we should dispose of this one.
So, okay, so we should take the vote.
But I think if anybody has ideas about, what they're planning to propose, you don't have to go over them one by one, but, I'd like to hear what they're thinking. Thank you.
Okay. Member Rollins-Burnett?
I don't remember what I was going to say. Mahalo, Chair. I think what I was going to say was that the motion includes government subsidies. Or that was a question for Member Bolton, since that was the motion. Was that what was included?
Well, Member Sugimura sold me on it with her argument, so I accepted it as a friendly.
Okay. Mahalo for that clarification. And I know we kind of deep dive into the example of DR funds, but I think Member Polton was just using it as an example of, different government subsidies. And I know that there are, rules and restrictions to all the different government subsidies, which is why I'd be supportive of it being broader government subsidies because of what we have today. And then, moving into the future, if, even if the county were to create something else for, subsidizing affordable housing, that's not something we talked about, but, it could be. So that's why. But yeah.
Member Cook, did you have your hands raised?
I'm not supportive of this at that time. I'm digesting all this.
Oh, okay. Okay, okay. So I want to get back to the motion that was amended friendly, right? So Member Paulton accepted Member Sugimura's discussion as a friendly amendment. So what does that look like now?
Exactly how Mr. Mitchell said.
Okay, back to you, Remy. Could you please repeat that? I want to make sure our staff gets it done right.
Thank you, Chair. So I think the motion would read now, single-family ownership units that did not receive a county fund subsidy, comma, or other government subsidy, subject to the applicable rules of that subsidy, comma, will have their deed restriction periods, and you've changed the half portion to 12, 16, and 10, is that correct?
12, 10, and 8.
Or 12, 10, and 8 years, rounded up to the nearest whole year. And then there's some additional text in there to specify the AMI for those years that staff can fill in. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's clear.
Chair, just really quickly, I think the magic language for our department would be subject to the rules of that applicable subsidy, because we really don't want to be in a position of trying to match two things. So thank you for that.
Okay, substitutes. Okay. Okay, so I guess we're going to take a roll call vote, right? Okay.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes, Carla.
Could staff clarify, please, whether the government subsidies would include things like exemptions to development standards and things of that nature? Are we talking strictly financial subsidies?
Remy? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Well, that's for the body to decide. But if I had a recommendation to make, I would keep it simple and keep it on the financial subsidies. Thank you.
Okay. Did you get that, Carla? Okay. Okay, are we ready for the vote? Are you voting, or are you voting, or are you going to ask
I have a question for Ms.
Okay.
Nakata.
Question. Okay.
You had a question too? Okay, my question for Ms. Nakata is, and I guess to clarify with Director Mitchell, funding subsidy, when you were asking about exemptions, if the exemption is a cost, because we've been, the departments like wastewater, parks, others have public works, sidewalks. If there's a cost associated, then what we've done is allocated from the Affordable Housing Fund to these self-funded divisions in order to make them whole. And we've been doing that for the past 3-ish years because they're self-funded, and it was creating a deficit in their budget if we didn't do something. So when you say exemptions, do you just mean the no-cost type of exemptions?
Staff is just saying that the more clarity we can have in terms of how to write up what's being requested, the better. So as I understand it, it's now including other government financial subsidies. So I'm assuming that this includes things like fee exemptions or waivers, but it does not, or it does include things like exemptions from development of sidewalks or things like that that would have a cost associated, but it's not a dollar amount that the county's granting per se.
Mahalo for that clarification. So, like, for me, and I can ask Director Mitchell his opinion, but those have costs associated to them that we have been allocating from the Affordable Housing Fund to the departments to make them whole. So there is a funding implication.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. I'm trying to keep this as simple as I possibly can. So if we could phrase it as direct financial contributions or some manner like that, that will just keep, I think, the entire process simpler than trying to track every little exemption and whether that has a potential financial value to the developer. But obviously, once you've got your first go around of this amendment approved, and we can take a look at the language again and reflect on whether it might need to be tweaked. Clearly, this is not going to be finished today, so we'll have another opportunity at this. Thank you.
Mahalo, Director Mitchell. I am satisfied with that. And so I believe we're saying the subsidies would not include exemptions, even if there's a cost associated in this motion right now.
Correct.
And then later on in the future, we can have more of a discussion on that. Mahalo, Chair.
Shirley.
I was also concerned about what Carla brought up and appreciate the director's comments, because there can be direct and indirect value added to the project. And so it's not only government subsidies. Could be something else too. It could be a time fast tracking something or exempting this or that process. So that's what is not included in the verbiage, but I suggest we take the vote. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. So we're going to do a roll call vote. Staff?
Proceeding with the roll call vote, Chair Lee,
No.
Councilmember Sugimura,
No.
Councilmember Paulton,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Rollins Fernandez,
Aye.
Councilmember Cook, Councilmember Sinensi,
Aye.
Committee Vice Chair Hodgins,
No.
Committee Chair Kama,
No.
Chair, that's 5 noes, or sorry, 4 ayes, 5 noes, motion fails.
So are there any other amendments? Member Rollins Fernandez, and then we'll go to,
Mahalo, Chair. I move to add single-family ownership in B4 pursuant to the suggestion from Ms. Nakata.
Second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded to add single-family ownership to 2.96060 B4, right? That's what you're talking?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that was simple. Can we keep it simple?
Call for
Any
the question.
discussion? I gotta go discussion first. Process. Okay. Hearing none? Seeing none? Oh, you see, there's a discussion piece.
I guess if that's what we're putting on there, I kind of would prefer it to say multifamily instead of single family. I mean, if we do both, that's what it says right now. Because I guess I just go back to the idea that multifamily is the starter and single family is the forever home or the dream or whatever, you know. I mean, I see so many multifamilies being proposed, and then I see in the comments, we want single family ownership, but I mean, not everyone can attain that. So it really feels like single family home ownership is the dream that people want to get. And so that's why it's important to me that we don't allow speculative interests in single family homes. We've allowed it in A1, A2 zoning. We've allowed it left, right, and center. But it's the speculative interests, which some people call generational wealth or whatever. Although, you know, that's not, I mean, I'm not trying to steal the Community Land Trust tagline, but I agree. To me, generational wealth is being able to spend time with my family, which, I mean, I'm not doing lately. But for normal people who have normal lives, to be able to go to their kids' games, to be able to like help their kid with homework, to be able to not work 2 to 3 jobs, like it's to what deed restrictions do is they give you other types of generational wealth where it's time spent with family, time spent surfing, time spent paddling, not having to work 3 jobs, not having to worry about your landlord doubling the rent, not worrying about all the things that people are worried about right now when they don't have home ownership. I mean, even home ownership, people are worried about it now because of tariffs and whatnot, and all the things. But I really feel that, single family home ownership is the dream of most of our residents. And so we need, I would like to do everything possible to take that speculative nature out of it, because if it isn't, anybody who had moved here and realized that dream could sell the house for however much millions and go back to Tennessee, Texas, California after they have a kid, want to be near their parents or whomever, and cash out of the lottery, and it's never affordable again for another local person. And maybe it doesn't happen that much in Kahului or Wailuku, but I've seen it happen nearly every month, every year in West Maui. Or, they got an affordable home, they moved back home to the continent, whatever, and they'll say, oh, you can rent out my house, but it's not affordable rent, there isn't any sense of, I won the lottery, I got this affordable single family home that is so coveted, but there isn't really a sense of, I want to pay it forward and give the next local family the opportunity to get an affordable single family home. And I haven't seen that. And that's why deed restrictions longer on single family homes are very important to me.
Okay, so the motion is to insert the word single family in the front of ownership, correct? That was Member County Rollins' amendment, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I personally don't feel that strongly about it. I was just cleaning up the bill pursuant to our staff's clarification question. And as we discussed earlier, most multifamily units do get subsidies. So it wouldn't so much be implicated in this section, but I could be wrong. So I'm fine to withdraw my motion.
Okay, will the seconder withdraw his seconder?
I withdraw my second.
Thank you. Okay, any other amendments? Member Hodgins.
Thank you, Chair. I will begin with page 3B, deed restrictions for multifamily or 2-family ownership units, each within the income groups, are subject to the following deed restriction, and it's 10 years across the board.
Where are you at? Page 3?
Page 3 on the bottom.
Yep.
Section B.
Okay. So A, B, and C, you want it 10, 10, 10?
Yep.
Okay. Is that a motion? That's a motion?
Yep.
Okay, did someone second that?
I don't know. Guess not.
Okay, it was moved by Member Hodgins, second by Member Cook, to amend 2.96.060B1, A, B, and C to 10 years, 10 years, 10 years.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, discussion.
I think we've had this discussion several times, but I don't disagree that a multifamily unit is not probably your forever home. But at the same time, I don't want it to be flipped so easily either. So 10 years is similar to what 201H does. And I would just like to keep that part consistent.
Okay. Discussion, oh, yes, Member Cook, and then we'll go to Chair Lee, and then Ms. Paulton.
Thanks. I want to, just so my colleagues kind of know where I'm coming from and this in general, and I support that. During the discussions that we've had in the last week with the various resource people, it's been stated, and I've heard other times, it's that we have the most restrictive and regulated land use in the country. I agree that the demand and speculation on our local housing needs to be addressed, but feel that we are not addressing the cause of the high cost and the 10-year deed restriction, having a deed restriction, having limitations, I agree, is to some degree mitigating the speculative aspect of it and making it, people have more of a commitment that when they're buying the property, they're buying a property to live in it. I think that leasehold property and taking the value of the property out of the equation and having the vertical, there's other ways to do it, and I'm not prepared to propose it. I just want people to know I am shoulder to shoulder with wanting to maintain and preserve and enhance local generational home ownership for our children, grandchildren, and, you know, so I'm seconding this motion. I'm supporting this motion, but I just want people to understand, even though I may disagree with some of the details of this particular bill as we go through it, philosophically and deeply morally, that's my feelings. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Chair Lee?
Yeah, I'll be voting against the motion because I've said it before that the below moderate is the group that has the most subsidy, no matter how you slice it. And then the moderate, you know, these people work hard, you know, they work hard to buy a home and work hard to get 2 or 3, you know, jobs to pay. And if they're paying more, I don't know why they should be restricted as the people in the below moderate. So I believe that there needs to be a sense of fairness here, and I don't see the fairness. So I am voting no. And besides, you know, I agree with the general remarks of Mr. Cook. We're spending an awful lot of time on something like this when the bigger problems are the costs involved and us involved. If we removed us from a lot of these projects and restrictions, it'll be cheaper. You know, something to think about. Thank you.
Okay. Member Paulton?
I also won't be supporting the motion. I know Member Uluhajin's thought it was my original proposal because that's what we landed on for Wailea 670. But that was only because I felt like my back was against the wall and I was just trying to get something. It wasn't because it was well thought out, I think. But I thought we had heard from our resources that kind of what Charlie was saying. And from my recollection of when Linda Munsell was the Deputy Director of Housing and Human Concerns, the data that she had was, you know, when the 120% AMI for multifamily, people weren't doing it. That's why I was kind of surprised when Halikaiola suggested a 20-year deed restriction. So, but, you know, I mean, and then people bought it because that's the state of our market right now. But if this is the best we can get right now, I mean, I think I'm okay with how it is written, so I wouldn't be supportive of that, I guess.
Chair, I'm not necessarily married to this idea. I have so many other things, so we don't need to take a vote. I'm happy to rescind it and move on to my other amendments.
Okay, if the secretary is able to Okay, thank you for that. Members, you are so great today. Okay, does anybody else have any other amendments?
I do.
Oh, okay, Member Hodgins.
For the single-family ownership within income groups that are subject to deed restrictions contained in the following deed restrictions. This is on page 4, section 2. Below moderate, instead of 20 years, 15. Moderate income, instead of 16 years, 12. And I will keep above moderate income to the proposed 10 years. I move to make that motion, please, Chair.
Okay. It was moved by Member Hodgins and seconded by Member Sugimura, right? To do, what was it again, 12?
15, 12, and 10.
15, 12, and 10.
And in the same motion, Chair, if you don't mind, I would like to just strike number 4 in its entirety.
Okay, and strike number 4. Okay. Discussion.
Sure. I will start with number 4. I don't want these deed restrictions halved. I would rather find a more reasonable deed restriction. I think Member Rollins Fernandez made a good point when she was asking to clarify what that means with the affordable housing subsidy. And for right now, even 100% affordable housing projects in 2.97, when you get a waiver for your building permit fees, for your parks fees, if, to her point when she was asking about all the other things that make whole, that's basically every project we have. And so number 4 becomes moot. And as far as number 2, going back to the years, I'm trying to find a better balance. So 20, 16, and 10 years is what Member Paulton, I think, originally proposed in Bill 12. Mines were a little bit shorter. So this is kind of more in the middle. I don't disagree that I want our local people to have a forever home. I want them to stay home, but I also want our housing providers to be able to actually build these homes with enough financing that they can create a product that people want to stay in for a long time. And every restriction we put on makes it more difficult to finance, makes it more difficult to then build, and makes the product not wanting for our local residents to stay there. I know that Member Paulton, unfortunately, in West Maui, they have that issue. But on my side of the island, we don't have enough affordable housing, period. And it's like a weird, bittersweet luxury to have affordable housing flip out, and I don't want it to be that way. Let me make that very clear. I don't want affordable housing to flip out of affordability. But we don't even have that opportunity on my side of the island, not even at all. Mm-hmm. I've worked on a few projects and they're very small and few and far between, and they're on previously entitled land. We don't have that anymore. And so I just, as Member Cook said, I don't want to put so many restrictions on it that we don't even have housing. I'm not too sure how many homes we've even had come through with 2.96 in a while. And so we're talking about 2.96, and yet sometimes I wonder if we really are just spinning our wheels because not too many projects actually come through. And so I just want to make it a bit more realistic.
Okay, very good. Shirley?
I think Member Paulton had her hand up first.
Oh, I'm sorry, Member Paulton.
Just a request if we can separate, because I would like to support the removal of number 4, but I wouldn't like to support the other one. So if we can do it one vote at a time.
Okay.
So we're on the number 2 first, or I mean whichever.
Okay.
Or
so
I think maybe number 4 might go faster if we just do number 4 first.
Okay, we just separate it out, right? You want to do number 4 separately, then from 2ABC. Okay. Any discussion on number 4? Member Rollins Fernandez.
I support that.
Okay.
Taking that first, and I support removing it. Mahalo,
Very
Member
good.
Hodges.
Okay. So do we need to actually do a motion to separate, or can we just separate it ourselves?
You need a motion, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that was That was part of,
Rosenberg's lets us do whatever, is what I was told.
well, that's what I heard, but I'm not Rosenberg.
Chair, if it's okay, could we ask the committee attorney to weigh in?
Chair, maybe it's simplest if we just request Member Hodgins withdraw the original motion and then make a new motion to strike 296060B4.
Can do. I'm happy to withdraw, and then we'll stick with my motion to strike number 4 in its entirety.
Thank you. Okay. So did we all get that? So I don't have to repeat it?
Sounds
right?
good.
Okay, very good. So now we are on Member Hodgins' original motion, right? So we're back to 2.960604.
Hi.
Okay.
Okay, so my turn.
Yes, Shirley.
Okay, I am, so this is 15, 10, and what?
No, we're on number 4. We're separated it out.
Just
So
striking
when it's
4.
up- yeah.
Okay, I have nothing to say on that one.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say? Yes, Member Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, I believe we should have partnerships with our builders, and I think striking out 4 brings them to the table, and I'm in full support of it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, sure. Any other discussion? To delete or not delete number 4, that's what it actually boils down to. Okay.
He makes a good point.
Okay, are we going to do? Are we going to do a roll call vote, or can we just have a show of hands? Voice vote. That's what I heard. Is that true? Okay. All those in favor of deleting, because that's what it is, right? Number 4. Raise your hand, say aye. Hallelujah. I want to sing that song at this moment. Okay, so the vote is 9-0. Motion passes. Okay, any other amendments?
Can we go back, Chair, to my
Number 4,
number
2A.
2?
Yeah, okay, let's go back.
Single-family ownership homes within each income group are subject to the deed restrictions contained in this section. The following periods are below moderate income, 15 years, moderate income 12, and above moderate 10.
Okay. So that's a new motion, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, did that get a second?
I don't.
Okay, Member Sugimura, second your motion. Discussion? You don't have to, I know we went through it already, but up to you.
Yeah, I said my discussion earlier, and then we split that other last motion.
Okay.
So.
Any other discussion? Shirley?
Wild about this motion. My concern is the national average, which includes Hawaii. People move from their homes every 7 to 10 years on average, okay? Has nothing to do with deed restrictions, has everything to do with life. Get a divorce, somebody dies, change of jobs, have children, your parents come and live with you, whatever. That's life. So every 7 to 10 years, people have a reason to move on or move someplace. That's what bothers me about this restriction. The other part that bothers me is the shared equity part. The way things stand right now, so these folks wouldn't, in the A category, below moderate, wouldn't be able to use their equity for 15 years. The only thing that they are allowed to do is to refinance. But they can't take an equity loan to pay for grandma's operation or the kids' school tuition or childcare or anything. So that's the part that really bothers me. Maybe we could work on that. Maybe we could work on how we figure out shared equity. Not that they can, take out every single all the value in their homes, but make it a little easier for them to borrow money is my concern, if we're going to stay with this kind of stringent deed restriction.
Okay.
So I'm still thinking about it.
Okay.
You know, it's not something that,
married to it.
this is not an easy
No.
vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Paulton.
Thank you, Chair. While the national average that Chair Lee referenced is correct, the national average on deed restriction length is 30 to 50 years. And that's to say, you know, if somebody moves in 7 to 10 years after winning the lottery of single-family home ownership in Maui, whether it's Paia or Lahaina or Lanai, it's about paying it forward. It's not like you won the lottery and 7 years from now you cash out at $1 million something, you know? And on the shared equity or the pulling out the equity, we've had folks say you can pull out the equity that you put in. You can't pull out the equity of the full value, but the equity that you put in, it's getting away from the idea that because you won the lottery, now you're a 1.5 millionaire, you know? Because that's what, like, I mean, maybe it's 1.4 now. Like, I was blown away at the recent appraisals that were mailed out. Like, holy cow, you know? And all of the value is in the land. It's not in the house. But that's just saying, like, you know, people are free to move every 7 to 10 years, but the idea that you won the lottery and you got the dream home, that's great. But now you're taking that affordable housing off the market for the next family and the next family and the next family. And it's true, like what Member Uuhajin said, we're not building it fast enough. And it's also true that we can't build our way out of it. And it's also true that Maui housing is inelastic. You can build 20,000 units right now, and it's not going to be 20,000 local families getting houses because the demand for Maui is, I don't know, we might have had to reconsider the Noka Oi slogan, you know, because everybody and their brother wants the best, and everybody and their brother would love to own a home in Maui. And so, it's just thinking about the community that you want to be a part of in 30 to 50 years, because in 7 to 10 years, if we focus on the individual homeowner winning a lottery, making out with $1 million something bucks, after 7 years, we're not going to be able to help our residents in the over the course of a long term. And I think that, you know, it's not often that I get starstruck by the continent, but I think that they have it right with the 30 to 50 year average on deed restrictions. Like Member Johnson said, it's about creating islands of affordability, and the amount of affordable housing per 2.96 is so small. Like, yeah, everyone says when it's 50%, nothing got built. And I believe the 50% is one factor, but there was a combination of many factors. That was when the economic
Downturn.
The bottom fell out, you know? So, I mean, it's not just the bottom falling out. It's not just the 50%. It's a combination of factors. But we're talking about 25% of market homes, not even just 25% of the project, which is more. 25% of the market homes we're talking about. If you go out, you get your first-time home buyer, your family gives you some money, you hit the jackpot, whatever, and you buy one of the other market homes, do whatever you want. Move in 7 years, jack up the price, you know, like 7 years from now, you're going to have a lot more value because that's the trend, you know? But we're talking about a very small, limited amount of affordable housing that is not meant to have one person cash out on in the lottery. We're talking about building our communities, paying it forward, generational wealth that's security of home, not having to move every time because your landlord jacks the rent, not having to move every time because FEMA or COVID or whatever. So that's just my comments. I'd like to keep it where it is, but it is better than what 2.96 is currently. So I likely would not be supporting this amendment, but if the amendment passes, I'm not gonna like cry in my milk.
Thank you. Any other, Member Johnson?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I had written down islands of affordability in a sea of market, the sea of change in market speculations. It's funny because, well, first off, I'll start from personal experience. Evioli was built in 1990. That's a workforce housing on Lanai. I raised my child in that place, right? Now she's 21 years old. That if they did have a short deed restriction, I don't know where we could find a place on Lanai that had that kind of rents. So I consider myself like a living member of the working board. That's where, if not there, then where? So one of the times I remember when we talked about deed restrictions, we were talking with Aspen, and they kind of laughed at us at how short our deed restrictions were. They're like, how hard it is to build an affordable housing project or a workforce housing project? And I shook my head vigorous. Oh, we know. And they said, then what are you doing? Like, it's kind of comical for you guys to be doing this, because guess what's going to happen in these short term, or these 12, 10, and 8 years? You're back to square one, right? And again, I lived in Evioli to raise my daughter, who's 21 now. That would have cut my time there short. And I do want to address some of the things that were said a little bit earlier, and I'll end it on this. But I've heard some talking points from our members that I think have not aged well in today's situation. We don't have, there's not a lack of scarcity to build these units. It's just a lack, or maybe a fear, or a not understanding the process. Many communities across the nation, they use their bonds to build these projects. We have AA plus bond rating. We got a great bond rating. We have an affordable housing fund. Not many communities can say that, right? We have the lowest property tax rates in the nation, even lower than Texas. And we know Texans hate their taxes. The idea that we have to look at building infrastructure for the builders. The builders tell us, and that number's changed, but in my experience, $500,000 to build a house, about a 3-2. That's what it was told to me recently. I know that number changes, but if they're required to build an infrastructure, that's where the county kicks in. That's where we put in our good bond rating. That's where we kick in our affordable housing fund. That's when we look at the tax rates for our billionaires and our millionaires, right? So that's, I think we shouldn't act from a position of scarcity. We should build these islands and protect them, islands of affordability, and protect them as long as we can. If somebody didn't protect it for me, then I would have been out that 2-bedroom where I raised my child. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Member Rollins Fernandez, and we'll continue with Member Cook.
Mahalo, Chair. Member Johnson said that it was comical. I think it's more tragic. It's also tragic, the examples that Chair Lee used about life happening, about medical bills and the cost of education being just so out of reach for most people. America has truly failed its people when it can't provide these two basic things that everyone should be able to have access to: medical and education. I think we as council members, it seems that we kind of have a fundamental difference on how we look at housing, whether housing should be used for the commodification of winning the lottery, as Member Paulton stated. cashing in on the government subsidy that we provide, or that the speculative market houses provided to those affordable units. Islands of affordability, inventory of affordability, either way, but cashing in on those government subsidies contributes to the cost of all the housing going up. Like, it seems like pretty straightforward to me. Government subsidies is taxpayer dollars, and it should belong to everyone. And that's why these affordable units should remain in affordability really for in perpetuity. I think by not tying deed restrictions to the length of time that it would take for the construction of new affordable housing to replace those that would fall out of the deed restriction is not very strategic on our part. I think that's, it would be smarter and less arbitrary. So I will not be supporting the motion on the floor. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you. Member Cook.
Thank you, Chair. 40 million people want to live here and they can afford it, and they're not us. Okay? Our problem is not with demand, our problem is with supply. And being able to I'm going to use myself as an example, being able to finance my home. Both my kids, because I could get a second mortgage, I got to help them go to college. My contractor license, you had to have $35,000 cash in the bank. Now it's $50,000. I could get a second on my house, do that, and then pay it off. So that type of liquidity. And my son still lives in the house. It was the only property I ever bought. So and I am a little odd duck. You all know that. You work with me for a while. I think it was member Paulson said, the value isn't in the house, it's in the property. And so I just strive to focus on that during our conversations, that leasehold property, taking away the opportunity for people to win the lottery, to capitalize on having a piece of Maui, and being able to commoditize it and sell it when it is a workforce, residential property, is a tool and a way to limit its value, limit its liquidity, limit its desirability to be speculated, because it isn't like that. So I'm going to support this. I'm not gung-ho on, I believe that deed restrictions is a tool. We don't have that many tools in our toolbox right now. We need a tool. I can accept this tool. It's not my favorite tool, but I'm hoping that we can, I'll summarize with this. As a builder, I see very little incentives to build. It's very, very, very difficult to build. You can have a pile of material, you can own a piece of property, and you can't build. Whether it's you don't have the water, you don't have this, you don't have that. So we collectively, as the policymakers in government, have the opportunity and the responsibility to work on this challenge, to enable people to build, to incentivize them to build. And I agree, we're the stewards of the land. We are not here to just play Monopoly. So I'll support this. I just hope that I'm conveying, I don't think we're really making solutions. We may be making it harder for people to sell and stuff, but I think we're also making it harder to build. Thank you for your patience with me.
Thank you. Any other, Member Sinensi.
Mahalo, Chair, for my opportunity. I get it's not a surprise. I support the longer deed restrictions. For me, when I'm thinking generational, 100 years is not a long time for many generations to be where we live. I don't have my own home, but I thank my dad who left all of us, homes for us. And so I'm appreciative of the multi-generational home. I don't know, Chair, I don't know how many thousands of people have already left for the mainland, close to 100,000, I would think. I mean, we're nearing there. So when you talk about moving, it's just become too expensive for all of our families. And as our testifier said, she wants all of her children and grandchildren to come home too, as much as all of us want our families to come home too. I like to, go visit, and we're going to be visiting all the districts next month. But personally, I see the change in population. Like, I'm very aware of it. I mean, we have all of our families and the different cultures and stuff, but I see less of it as I go around this island. So, I mean, that's the other thing that's going to be really, evident in the next couple of years. We're here for a couple of years, but the decisions we make after we leave here today is going to, span 3 more generations. So I won't be supporting this motion, Chair. Thanks.
Okay. Member Hodgins, and then Member Paulton.
Thank you, Chair. It's funny because I don't disagree with majority of what people have said today. I just think I look at it differently. It is difficult to build affordable housing, but that shouldn't be the case. Like, that's the problem we're discussing, is that it is so hard to build affordable housing. Something we've said we needed for 30-something years is still hard to build. That's the problem. Deed restrictions is part of the problem, but the fact that we don't make it easier to build is the problem. So we can look at everybody else and be like, oh, they have a 30-year deed restriction or 50-year deed restriction, but what else are they doing to not make it difficult? Are they providing their own affordable housing? Because we don't. We just made a housing division, which is lovely. Don't get me wrong. But our former mayor used to make housing. Back in the day, I've said this so many times, my grandma bought low-income housing. We didn't need a deed restriction because we were able to actually build. We still live there. So we're penalizing our people who actually want to live in the homes forever. The problem is people moving here, not our local people not being able to live here and finance their own property. And I completely understand this idea of winning the lottery. I do. And yet I find it to be so incredibly disheartening. To win the lottery, to be able to stay home, that's bananas to me. And yes, I completely don't disagree. However, I would like to put that into perspective. I have a gigantic family. Nearly everybody on this island, for whatever reason, is somehow related to us. And yet, not too many people I know have actually bought into affordable housing. A lot of us already own property. We've owned property because we've been here for generations and generations. Not too many people have actualized the affordable housing fund directly. So winning the lottery is really capitalizing on my parents' investment into this county, my brother's investment into this county if he so chooses to have a home. We are talking hopefully about long-term residents finally actualizing their taxes with something tangible, like a house. That's what we're talking about here to me. It's not necessarily winning the lottery. And I'm hoping maybe one day, because I don't have affordable housing personally, that my kids might be able to buy affordable housing. And what that means for me is that my great-grandparents' taxes that they have been putting into this place before half of these people were here, and my grandma's, and my parents, and mine, and everybody else's in our family tree has helped this one child buy a home. That's what it means to me. And you're right. Member Rollins-Fernandez is absolutely right. It is our taxpayers' money. That is all of our money. That's my point. And so it is all of the money that we've all collectively invested. And if it wasn't so hard to build, we wouldn't have to subsidize it so much. And it's not necessarily arbitrary, my 15, 12, and 10. That is the balance of what I heard over the last few weeks of discussion. And if we didn't have affordable housing development take so long, then we wouldn't need really these long deed restrictions, because people wouldn't be selling it necessarily. Or they would be able to live where they would choose to live from the first get-go, instead of having to buy whatever they can afford in that moment because we don't have inventory for people to buy. And then going, oh, shucks, I'd rather be over here where I'm really from, like I said before. If I had to choose and I had to build stability for my family, I would probably buy in Kahului or Kihei, not my favorite, but I would want to go home. No offense, no offense. It's only because I'm a playa girl. It has nothing really to do with Kihei. But I have to live in Olinda right now. But that's not where I want to live. That's not where I want to die. I want to go home, but I can't. This is the problem. It's not deed restrictions. It's that this body doesn't know how to make affordable housing. We haven't. This county doesn't know how to make it, no offense. That's our problem. And we look to everybody else as being the problem. But really, we don't know how to do it. We ask everybody else to do it for us. We make it difficult, we make it expensive, and we wonder why we don't have anything. That's the problem.
Would we all like to drink to that? I've got water. Okay, so members, we're going to take the vote. Yes, oh, I'm sorry, Member Bolton?
I just wanted to speak to what Member Cook said about somebody would hopefully be able to buy it. As single-family homes are considered like more forever homes, I would hope that our county Department of Housing, if anybody wanted to sell before the deed restriction, would take the first right of refusal for a single-family affordable home. So I don't think that's a worry. Like, if anybody was selling their single-family home before the deed restriction ended, we better pick it up, right?
Agreed.
So, I mean, like, maybe there's some wishy-washiness about the Kaiola project and all the defects or whatever. Hopefully they can work it out, but we also have the first right of refusal on that. I don't know if we would buy it if it's as defective as they say. But that's not about deed restrictions, that's about product defect, you know? Like, I mean, if it was a not defective property, I hope we would pick those up too. So I just wanted to comment on that, like, being able to sell or get out of an affordable housing deed restriction shouldn't be the concern, because we, the county, should exercise that first right of refusal. And the other point I wanted to make is in terms of steps. Like, I agree that we have many problems in creating affordable housing, permitting, whatever. But it's kind of like if you have a bucket that's leaking, before you pour all the water into it, you want to fix the leak first, is the way I see it. And that it's so difficult for us to, you know, kind of fix the leak. Like to me, once we get over this hump of deed restrictions to something where it's better than 5, 8, and 10, then we move on to the next issue, which I don't know if it's permitting or getting our own person in the planning department that can work on changing zoning for our own county housing or whatever. But I have a hard time going full steam ahead with the leak in the bucket.
I agree. Okay, members, any other discussion? Yes, Chair Lee.
Can appreciate what Member Paulton said, but 15, 20 years ago, there wasn't this kind of housing problem. Deed restrictions were not the problem because there was supply. But today, there isn't, for many reasons, not simply because of deed restrictions. As Member Cook said, we have to increase supply, and that's where our focus should be. So hopefully we won't spend, more of an inordinate amount of time on this. I'm willing to compromise, and but I am still concerned about the shared equity agreement. I think that needs to be revised, but that could be done, I think, administratively. And if so, please do it, because don't give it to us, because it will take another 5 years to do that, okay? No, really, it's not that we want to give everybody the opportunity to use up all the equity in the first or second or first 10 years. That's not it. But just give them a chance to use some of it, because they can't use any of it for the first 10 years or whatever the deed restriction is. The only thing they can do is refinance. So if we can give them a break there, I'd be happy to support either this motion or something close to it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell, were you going to say something?
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't intending to, but Member Paulton gave me the stare of I went to a military boarding school. And while I was there, when I got that stare, I would quickly say, yes, sir. and the statement was about whether the department would exercise the right of first refusal. And as I've indicated to the body, my focus is on developing and maintaining an inventory of affordable housing, and I won't be able to maintain that if I don't exercise that right of first refusal. So, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I wish my kids listened as well.
Got to send to military boarding school. My father gave us that stare for years, and we knew what it meant. Now I know where he got it.
Okay. It's my get out of the rip current stare.
Remember Rollins Fernandez?
Mahalo, Chair. I was hoping that either Corp Counsel or Director Mitchell would be able to clarify some of the points that were just made about not being able to do anything but refinance, or I don't know, what did you say, Charity? Because I'm not sure if that's accurate. You cannot sell for 3 years. You were spitting out numbers, but I was trying to look to see.
She said equity, but you can take out the equity you put in. You can't take out the full value of the equity because it's deed restricted. So you can take out the equity what you put in, but you can't take out the full value.
Okay,
because
I'm talking about a real case. You're talking about what you think might be the case.
Oh, Freddie Mac said. I mean, the Freddie Mac people.
The way the county does the shared equity program, according to someone who called me 2 weeks ago and said, I cannot take equity out. I can only refinance. So let's say he has a 6% rate of interest right now, so he can refinance to 5.5 or 4.5. But he can't take out $20,000 to pay for a medical bill. That's what I'm saying. So maybe the reason why they do that, the reason why the department does that, is to guard against people taking out too much money before the time lapses. See, so he's not he wasn't able to take out 10 cents.
You can't take out more. Well, I guess it depends on who your mortgage lender is, but you can't take out more equity than what you put in while it's deed restricted.
No, it's not the lender. He told me it's not the lender. It was the agreement with the county.
Chair, can we call on Director Mitchell since we have housing here?
Okay, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chair Lee. Yes, I will sit down with department staff and look at our practice, which you have correctly described as one where someone who's in a deed-restricted home seeks to refi. We allow them to refi If it's to improve the interest rate or the term or the extended term of the loan, we don't allow them to cash out. And what you're suggesting, we don't allow them to cash out at all. And what you're suggesting is see if you can have some flexibility in how you administer that. And I'm saying yes, we'll look into that. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Cook?
Could you clarify cash out? Is cash out do a home equity loan?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Member Cook, for the question. Yes, taking out a HELOC or some other financial instrument that results in them getting cash. A good example of that is we recently received a request from an individual who was going to request, I think, $150,000 for undisclosed purposes. And whoever the financial institution was, they would not get their money back until sometime in the future when the property is sold. And there were escalation clauses in the value of what was taken out. So that amount that was taken out would have a high interest rate and it would grow over time, and it could get very large. If you do that, and then there's a market fluctuation, that person could be upside down in that home. And now you've destroyed the affordability of the home. So it's not a practice that we've engaged in, but I'm hearing the request to have some flexibility with
Small
looking at
incremental, you know,
That's all.
small incremental.
Yeah, like 25 grand.
Again,
Well, let them decide.
again, we'll look into that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Don't ask us.
Member Paulton?
I just wanted to clarify with Director Mitchell, is that administrative rules? It's not in the code. And it's not a Freddie Mac thing.
It's the, thank you, Chair. Yes, it's our practice.
So does that
How
mean
we've administered
administrative rules?
that. Yes, in our administrative rules, how we've managed that.
Oh, so we cannot fix that. You gotta fix that.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we're going to look into that. I'm going to discuss that with staff, and then we will look at ways to have more flexibility. Thank you, Chair.
Ah, look at that. We solved one thing. Okay. Can we continue with the vote, members? Do you remember what we're voting on?
Could somebody repeat exactly what this vote's for?
That's what we're voting on. Yeah. Are you going to ask a question or are you voting?
Well, I was going to make a point earlier, but then Chair Lee was like saying some
Okay,
stuff that I
go
wanted
ahead.
to get Director Mitchell to elaborate and explain and clarify for us. Now it doesn't quite flow as it would have otherwise, but it's okay. So I wanted to bring up the Maui data book again about why deed restrictions and the length of deed restrictions are important, and why I know, you know, there's like difference of opinion on how much development we just kind of let like just go wild. Because in 1970, the population was 38,000. And then, what do you say? This is the data book. I don't know. This is from the Maui data book. So 38,000. And then in that 10 years, it grew by 62.4%. And that's when housing was being built. And if housing was going to the residents and those that were, you know, crowding in houses, then they already lived here. So it wouldn't have grown by 62% to 62,000. And then in 1990, another 45% to 91,000. And then another 10 years, 28% to 117,000. Another 10 years to 144, to 2020, 154. And that's where you see less growth from 22.8% to 6.7%, because housing also kind of slowed down. So there's a correlation with the amount of housing to population. And I don't know if Maui folks, residents, have had that serious conversation of how large of a population does Maui want to have. Like, do you folks want the population to continue to like just like explode like that? And at what point will it be Oahu? You know, I mean, on Molokai we've had that conversation, and we don't want our population to explode like this, which is why you don't hear Molokai people begging for affordable housing to be built on our island. Mahalo, Chair.
Chair Lee?
Oh, okay. I disagree to a certain extent. This is not something that we can, you know, legislate, you know. what the population should be. There are many things contributing to that. Actually, our population was dropping after COVID. But what we need to take into consideration is, let's not forget the root cause of our housing crisis is not having enough housing, and the high cost of living, and the high cost of money. So there are many contributing factors. And I would suggest we try and get over this hump and take a vote one way or the other and keep going and solve the problem so we can all watch the 6 o'clock news.
Thank you, Chair Lee. I spent half an hour trying to get to this place. So, we're going to take the vote 15, 12, and 10. Voice vote?
Chair, I said I was going to vote no, so
Okay.
roll call,
Chair?
please.
Thank you. Staff, please.
Chair, proceeding with the roll call vote. Chair Lee,
No.
Councilmember Sugimura, Councilmember Paulton,
No.
Councilmember Johnson,
No.
Councilmember Rollins Fernandez,
No.
Councilmember Cook,
Yes.
Councilmember Sinency,
No.
Committee Vice Chair Hodgins,
Yes.
and Committee Chair Kama.
Yes.
Chair, that's 4 ayes, 5 noes. Motion fails.
Next. Come on, you
Main
guys.
motion is amended.
Do we have any more amendments?
Keep trying.
I have a lot of amendments,
Okay.
but Chair Lee just voted to keep 20 years, 16 years, and 10 years. So exactly what she just said, that people leave every 7 years, it's now the same 20, 10, or 16 and 10 years. So I guess we can assume everybody's going to stay exactly where they are for at least 20 years. I do have a bunch of amendments, but it is 445.
How many do you have?
Like 6.
Okay.
How long did you guys want to stay here? And some of them require quite lengthy discussion, I'd assume. So I don't know what you guys want to do. I don't want to keep everybody here right before we start budget season, and we're going to have to be in here with each other for a long time.
Why don't we have a discussion about this for at least until 5? And so talk fast real quick. Member Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. I'm maybe if Member Hodgins just reads all of them, because like when you want move to remove number 4, like that was pretty fast, and everyone's on board. So if there are amendments that you're proposing that would have unanimous support, then maybe we can pick out those, and then we can tackle the other ones after that.
That's a great suggestion. How about I do 2 of them that I think might be easiest? Okay, thank you. Okay, one of them is on
Wait. Okay, and there was somebody else that.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out where we're going. Okay, go for it. Okay.
Well, actually, I think this might be easier, but I don't know, up to everybody. So this is on page 5, section C, where it just says owner occupied in perpetuity. I was just wondering if we could add long-term rental. And then on page 7, number 5, when we did housing, this was one of the issues for a period of 3 years or more before submittal. I won't read the entire paragraph, but as we discussed, sometimes life happens. So I'm wondering if we could just insert, unless an exemption is granted by the director. On page 7.
I'm okay with that second one. Let's move on that. Make an amendment.
Do you want to do just
7?
on page 7, paragraph 5, in section 6, number 5, is just to add a waiver of exemption if necessary by the director.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second?
So.
Section 5.
Page 7.
Section 5.
Number 5.
Section 6, 2.96.090.5,
Yeah.
B5.
For a period of 3 years.
Can you repeat the amendment? Proposed
For
amendment?
3 years before the submittal of the ownership application, have not had an interest of 50% or more in real property in fee or leasehold in the United States where the unit or land is suitable for dwelling purposes, unless the applicant is selling an affordable unit and purchasing a different affordable unit that is more appropriate for the applicant's family size, or if the director gives a waiver.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you? Okay.
Remy,
Okay, perfect.
you want to comment on that? You good? Yeah, you want to take it?
Just trying to
That's in
expedite.
case somebody gets a divorce,
Yes.
they had to sell property, and with their children need to buy another home. When we were doing some housing projects, that was one of the issues we ran into all the time. And so I don't have any specifics to change, rather than we need to give us and future homeowners some flexibility.
Okay.
Portability of affordability.
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Chair. And I apologize, I was unaware that the meeting was going to go into the evening, so I didn't cancel my evening meetings.
Oh, okay.
I did cancel 2 meetings today to get to this meeting. So if it's okay with Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to be excused so I don't have to.
Oh, okay. Okay. So if you got to leave, you got to leave, right?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So basically, so I guess you're okay with the waiver? Your waiver. This is what it's giving you, more authority. Okay.
Appreciate the flexibility and the less friction in the process. That helps on what I call the non-temporal restrictions to make things easier for developers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Yes.
No, we want to.
No, okay. Voice vote,
Aye.
right? See, Member Johnson said this is a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, 9-0. Motion passes. You want to go back to your page 5?
No, keep reading through and see if we have some easy stuff.
That's the, I thought those were the 2 easy ones. We only did one. We did
page 7, we got to do page 5.
Can you just read the rest even if they're not easy?
Oh, can we do the page 5 and then I can read the rest?
Thanks, Remy.
Thank you, Remy.
The page 5 is section C, ownership units must be occupied by the owner in perpetuity. I'm not necessarily against that, but if we had long-term rental availability, an actual long-term rental availability, I would appreciate that. Like my family, we have our own trust because we couldn't afford to buy homes otherwise. And basically we own collectively a trust, and my grandma has a long-term lease of 15 years, which has provided her some stability in property tax.
Did you make the
So
motion?
what do you?
Second?
I move to include long-term rentals after
Owner.
owner in perpetuity, at no comma yet, and include their long-term rentals, comma, unless the director finds one of the following exists, and it goes yada, yada, yada.
Second for
Second.
discussion.
Okay. So it's been moved by Member Uhajan, second by Member Paulton. Discussion. Member Paulton?
I didn't want to amend it without just first discussing it through. So what we're trying to do with the ownership units must be occupied in perpetuity is to keep things affordable. Would you be open to similar situation where it's more so for West and South Maui than any other place? But I feel like our long-term rental exemption and rate has a big loophole, especially like when you look at it in light of FEMA coming in and raising rents, would you be open to long-term rental not more than like 100% to 120% AMI regardless of what that person's income is?
Sure. How do you think that would work? Like, if you could just describe how that would work.
So you would look up the size bedrooms or whatever that the house is, and then you'd look up, like, I'd go for 100%, what the HUD rental rate is for 100% AMI, and that would be the max that it could be rented for, regardless of who you rent it to's income.
Okay. And then housing would keep track of this, or they would submit their, like for us, when I have to do my grandma's stuff, we have to submit her rental lease to RPT. So is it, I'm just asking how it would work in this scenario.
I think if it's documented as one of those, like either ownership in perpetuity or long-term rental in perpetuity, they should have a list and cross-reference it with their long-term rental exemption, that this one is capped at so much. Yes. And I'm not, the part that would be different than the HUD guidelines, I think, is in HUD guidelines, it's inclusive of utilities. I'm not saying that. Like, they gotta pay their own utilities.
Member Rollins Fernandez?
Mahalo, Chair. So what I was going to contribute to the discussion was, because long-term rental is not defined here, so either it can be defined or it can point to 3.48.466, which is in our tax, that's RPT. 3.48.466. However, so, and then if we wanted to do that, we can do a couple things. We can, one, include like the definition as, you know, it relates to this section of RPT, because in this section, dwelling units occupied as a long-term rental and under a signed contract to lease for 12 consecutive months or more to the same tenant. And then there's, you know, a process for that. And then adding the language in 2.96 for what Member Polton is saying regarding the tenant being the rental, the cost, the rental price being 100% AMI or less, and there not being any income restrictions connected to the tenant itself, because of what Member Polton has explained multiple times, which is that it costs a lot more to live in West Maui, and so the type of jobs necessary generates more income than other places on Maui.
And if I can specify, I think the HUD rental guidelines go by household size, so I would choose family of 4, just, you know, as average.
I'm quite open. My point was just to give the legitimate long-term local owner some flexibility. I'm quite flexible. As long as it actually makes sense, then I'm cool.
Okay. So, members, after hearing the discussion and the motion by Nohe and second by Tamara, well, my first name's already, it's not even 5 o'clock. Yes. So, do you want the motion repeated, or is this okay. Staff, can you please repeat the motion?
Apologies, Chair. There's been some discussion that's gone on. If it's okay, could we request that the move on, repeat the motion one more time?
Can you restate?
Okay. Ownership units must be occupied by the owner in perpetuity, or what was your words? In long-term. or in long-term rental as defined in 3.48.466 at the max value of, and you can, at the max rental price of HUD 100% AMI for a family of 4, not to include utilities. Regardless of income, without income restrictions, unless the director finds one of the following exists. And you can pretty it up, but that's the general gist.
Okay. Got it? Okay, thank you. So members, do we want to do a voice, or do you need to do a roll call?
Voice?
Voice? Voice? Okay, thank you, members. Oh, Mimi, do you have your hands up, Mimi?
No, I.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you're calling on, oh.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see what Corp Counsel.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it's completely up to you folks how to define it. I thought the issue that Member Hodgins was getting at was ownership could also include, since a lot of people are holding property in trust, this happens with the subdivision process where it has to be defined, owner is defined as like an individual or a family trust, or somehow defining in 296 that ownership could include a closely held family trust. So like if you're renting to your grandmother out of a family trust, that's still considered ownership, even though who is the owner? The family trust. So it might be worth exploring, and I can look at that a little bit more, but that sort of piqued my interest in that because I know we've had this trouble with the subdivision process, like really defining, because so many people no longer have their properties in their individual names.
Wouldn't the friendly amendment to her motion address that? Like she could rent it to her grandmother. It doesn't have to be up to 100% AMI. It could be nominal. So wouldn't that address that kind of situation?
I believe so. I think that would squarely fall in there as long as those financial, I mean, you could go as high as to say, you know, whatever as defined, affordable, as defined by 296, because you can go as high as 140. I don't know if you want to just say whatever the definition of affordable housing is.
100% is good with
Yeah,
me.
and that's up to you folks, yeah.
Okay.
James, did I say 100% AMI for a family of 4, not including utilities?
Okay, now.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, did we all hear that? So again, I'm going to ask, is it a voice vote? Okay, thank you, members. So all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I see 9-0. Motion passes.
Good job.
Okay, so what do you have left, Member Wu?
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
Before we go too far down the pages, I would like to ask for a reconsideration on the vote on the deed restrictions. And now the reason why I'm saying that is because originally I had asked Member Nohe Uhajens to give us all of her ideas.
Yeah.
And then I guess you wanted her to go one by one.
I think
because
Member Hodgins has to ask for the reconsideration because you were on the losing side. Somebody on the winning side.
No, I was on the winning side.
Oh, you were on the winning side.
I was on the winning side.
Okay, sorry.
So I thought.
Go ahead.
I thought we were going to have more discussions on various numbers.
I'll second her reconsideration.
Okay, thank
For
you.
reconsideration.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back to it's been moved and seconded to reconsider what
Yeah, this was 296060B2 on page 4. On page 4. And we voted on the deed restrictions below moderate 20 years, moderate 16
So that
years.
brings us back to right before we took the vote,
Yes.
right? So call for the roll call one more
Okay.
time.
Yes,
Oh, we got to vote on the reconsideration first.
got to vote on the reconsideration. Okay, voice vote for the reconsideration?
Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mrs. Hennessy, okay, thank you. 9-0 for the reconsideration.
And may I ask Member Hodgins to make the motion again?
No, doesn't the reconsideration
Okay.
take us right back to before the vote? So
Yeah.
start the roll
That's right,
call.
that's right. So roll call.
Okay, let's do this again.
It's 15:10.
Okay, so maybe,
12 and 10.
maybe you can repeat, or somebody, I'll just repeat that what the motion had to do with amending what is there now, 2016-10 to 15-12-10. So, yeah, so, and I would support her motion of 15-12-10.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Aye.
Chair proceeding with the roll call vote. No?
Oh.
Sorry?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye,
Chair Lee.
aye, aye. Oh, okay.
Councilmember Sugimura.
Aye.
Councilmember Paulton.
No.
Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Rollins Fernandez.
No.
Councilmember Cook.
Aye.
Councilmember Sinensi.
No.
Committee Vice Chair Hodgins.
Aye.
Committee Chair Kama.
Yes.
Okay. motion
Chair, that's 5 ayes, 4 noes, motion passes.
Okay.
Back to Member Hodgins. So you have 4 more left. Do you think it's going to take us through 30 minutes, or do you think not?
I think not. And also,
Okay.
I would prefer if we had housing director here because some
Okay.
of the amendments I would like to make probably require his input.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So it's 5 o'clock. Yes, Member Paulton.
Oh, I just was wondering, and it's open to everyone, if it would be okay for Member Hodgins just to read it. We're not going to vote on it, but just to marinate in it until whenever the next time it is. And we can all commit to not making any comments on what she says. We just want to hear it and then leave.
Fine.
Is everybody open to that? Yeah. Okay, so that's
Actually,
Member
so,
Rollins Fernandez.
Oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
heard her say no talking, but she wants to say something now. Go ahead.
After I talk, no talking.
Okay.
I was going to say, I support that. So I'd like to hear the amendments. And then my question is going to be for you, Chair. If Director Mitchell had an opportunity to review and give any feedback? He did. Okay. Is it on Granicus?
The what? Her
Oh, no, it's not on Granicus.
Yeah.
Director Mitchell, did he review the bill?
I'm sure he did.
Did he give you any feedback?
No, he didn't.
Because there's a section on there that I was surprised is on there. But
Oh.
I'm supportive of it.
Okay.
I just wasn't sure. That's why I'm not saying anything. Okay.
So,
Mahalo.
members, this is the plan. For the next 10 minutes, we're going to allow Member Hodgins to read her 4 amendments.
well, sure, but I don't have actually any specific amendments, but rather things that I wanted to consider to amend.
Okay.
But I wanted Director Mitchell's opinion and figured out how an amendment would look.
Okay.
Which include, on page 3, this is probably what Member Rollins Fernandez was talking about. For G, residential workforce housing credits, may not be issued after January 1st, 2050. We see it again on page 6 and page 9. I wanted his opinion on that, and perhaps then I might propose an amendment. Further, on page 4 again, because we spent a lot of time on page 4, number 3, ownership units on county-owned land will be subject to a deed restriction of 99 years. My question was, are we making a county trust? Are we doing our own version of Nahaleo Maui? And if so, then I would support 99 years. And if not, then I would like to find something else or remove it in its entirety. Later on page 4, section 5, I believe it's F3, the 25% difference between the appraisals must be added to the owner's purchase price. This is something we were talking about in our refinancing home equity conversation. On the last day of committee, we heard that perhaps 50% is something a bit more reasonable when it's being discussed. So I wanted for FHA loans, so I wanted to have his opinion on that and find a different percentage that might be, that might work best. And then on page 7, selection priority. I know that this is something this body has discussed before, but I wanted to discuss the resident of the county for 3 or more years. 3 years is adorable for them to be considered a resident. So I wanted to know what that meant, and I wanted to have that discussion on the selection priority, and if maybe possible, kind of figure out where we can amend for that. But no actual specific amendments, but amendments that I thought were worth potentially talking through when we have Director Mitchell with us.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay,
Chair,
yes,
would you like staff to prepare a letter to the housing
yes,
director
please.
with the questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're probably not going to, I'm probably going to defer, adjourn, and do this again, right? I would, after budget, yeah. So tell him don't feel pressured with all the other questions that we sent him from all of the committees. Okay, thank you. Yes, Mimi.
Thank you. I just want to throw a few things out because our department also did not have an opportunity to review this before posting very quickly. If there is going to be a sunsetting of housing credits, the question is, after that date, will housing credits that have already accumulated expire, or will they be able to be used? So that was one question we had. Another one was on page 5, at the very top, it talks about the department must verify the sales price, and that has caused some confusion in the past. What does that mean to verify it? It should say approve. If that's the intent, the language should be more affirmative in what you're asking the department to do rather than just verify. It means it doesn't really give them the authority to say, we don't really like it, or it's no, you can't do it. And then the other one, just really quickly, is on page 5C. Unless the director finds one of the following exists, and it says 1, 2, 3, 4, I would suggest thinking about saying, unless the director finds one of the following or something, give him a little bit more discretion in case something else comes up, because we've seen other people in hard times that aren't included here that should be considered. So it could say includes the following, or including but not limited to, something along those lines. And that's it, but thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Did you get all of that stuff? I mean, Carla, to add into the letter?
So Chair, I think
yes,
staff will work on getting the amendments that were approved by the body today incorporated into another proposed CD1 version along with Corporation Council's comments.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, one more quick thing, and this might be me, but on the top of page 5 where it says subparagraphs 2A through 2E, somebody smarter than me can verify whether it should say 5A through 5E because the paragraph changed, or is it really 2A through 2E? And that's it, I promise.
think it's E. Because they redid the letters, right? So it's E. Right?
Stuff going down.
Are you on the news today? Somebody want to go see it so badly.
So we good, Mimi? Okay, so members, okay, I guess we're good. We're good? Yep. Okay, so members, I'm going to defer this matter without your objections, and we'll come back with a CD1 version after budget. So this meeting is now adjourned at 5:15 p.m. Thank you, everyone.